Impact of Influence.
Covering true crime throughout the Southeast.
Hello, friend. Matt Harris, Seton Tucker. Always grateful you're going to spend time with us. Super grateful about that. We are getting into some Becky Hill news, Alex Murdaugh's trial or potential new trial. Information on that, maybe. Let's find out. But before we get into the episode, where can they find us, Seton?
You can find us on Facebook at Impact of Influence and also on our YouTube channel.
And we are real happy how the YouTube channel is growing. When you go look at the episodes, make sure you hit subscribe. You had mentioned previously that especially the Dick Harpootlian and Joe McCullough episodes.
Oh, no, those are ones that you definitely want to watch on video because they are so animated. And also, there is a weird animal behind Joe's head. Yeah, and I put it on our Facebook page, and I guess most people are saying it's a hyena.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We need to ask him about that.
We will dig into that breaking news. So again, thank you. Part of the Evergreen Podcast Company. Support our sponsors. Join in the conversation. Rate and share. And yes, we're ready to roll on this one. Kind of a little excited about it because we've been waiting for what might happen with Becky Hill. And on May 14th, former Colleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill was charged with 2 counts of misconduct in office, 1 count of obstruction of justice, and perjury. And Becky Hill turned herself into Colleton County Jail, was arraigned before Magistrate Jennifer Fishburne.
Now, representing her was her attorney, Will Lewis, and I know previously she had also been represented by Justin Bamberg, but he was not in attendance. I'm not sure if he is still involved in her defense. And it had to be really weird. This was her hometown.
Right.
Where she was involved in the court system.
And was running the biggest trial in the history of South Carolina.
No, it's just, I still find it sad. This is a woman who had never traveled on an airplane until after the trial when she accompanied several jurors to New York City to appear on Good Morning America.
No one roots for, well, I shouldn't say no one. People do root for people to fall from grace, but we don't root for a fall from grace from anybody. So no, it is sad.
It is sad.
If of course, if it is true, she deserves to be punished by what the law allows. So let's get to Colleton County, where she was charged with 3 Colleton felonies. Seton, tell us about those.
Okay, so the first one was misconduct in office. And it's alleged that Hill used her office for personal gain. And I believe this relates to her using resources to promote her book, Behind the Doors of Justice.
A book which is no longer being published.
And she admittedly plagiarized sections.
Exactly.
So the second charge is another count of misconduct in office, and this part of this is relating to misuse of Department of Social Services funds to give herself unauthorized bonuses.
That's not good.
No, and this, I think, in the affidavit it says this started in September of 2021 and it lasted until March of 2024, where Hill requested and received almost $10,000 in funding, and this funding was meant to enforce child support payments.
Which is obviously a very important thing, and if she used those for her own gain, that hurts children and either mothers or fathers who are trying to raise their kids.
Now, also in this charge is she received a financial gift that was a check made out to Colleton County Clerk of Court office funds in the amount of $2,000.
That was 3 days after Alex Murdaugh's murder trial ended.
Exactly. And she allegedly used this money for her own financial gain. And, I'm wondering if, this was the time that there were maybe some tours happening of the courthouse. Yes, yeah, and maybe someone gave a donation. And then she took and used that, potentially used that donation herself. Again, these are just allegations at this point. Because
how often do people give gifts to the clerk of court office? I can't imagine it's very often, right?
Yeah.
So that it had to be for some sort of reason. And maybe in her world, in her mind, she's like, well, I'm the one who did the tour. I'm the one who, if it was a tour.
Yeah,
Some justification like that.
I don't know. Maybe there was a reason that she legitimately used this money. We'll see if,
Right.
if we get to see a hearing on this, or maybe she pleads. We don't know. But the third charge was obstruction of justice. And this charge alleges that she shared sealed evidence with a third party or parties. So this suggests that Hill gave information that was under seal to a reporter, at least one or maybe more.
This is during the Murdaugh trial.
Yes. During the Murdaugh trial, she was in charge of she was the keeper of all of the exhibits. Mm-hmm. So,
and many of them were not shown on court TV.
No, the graphic images
right.
of Maggie and Paul, after they were killed, I guess those were seen by members of the media.
And the court TV was the pool reporter, so they were the ones showing it that everybody else could show as well. We do not know who she shared it with at this point.
Well, I mean, when we listen to the clip with Justice Toal, there's some suggestions of maybe Netflix or, others. And there were some emails, but Hill was given a $10,000 unsecured bond and then transported to Richland County, where she faced another felony charge.
And Richland County, for those unfamiliar, is where the state capital it is. That's where Columbia is, where USC school is. That's what we attended when Justice Toal talked to all the jurors.
Right. This was related to her testimony during this evidentiary hearing, which was being held to determine whether there was jury tampering in the Murdaugh trial. And if there was jury tampering, did it have any impact on the verdict that was rendered by the jurors?
Right.
And the Richland County was in front of Magistrate Judge P. Van Ellis.
The affidavit submitted says that she willfully and unlawfully gave false and misleading testimony when Chief Justice Jean Toal asked her, quote, "Did you allow anyone from the press to view the sealed exhibits?" End quote. And Hill responded, quote, "No, ma'am," end quote. That statement was inconsistent with what happened February 28th, 2023, when former Clerk Hill did release or make available sealed evidence, photographs to a third party or parties. That's what it says in the affidavit.
February 23rd was during the Murdaugh trial.
The 28th, yes.
The 28th, yes.
Yes.
To me, this is just, honestly, if in fact she was untruthful about this, it seems like such a dumb lie because it would be so easily provable. Cameras, key cards,
Right.
I don't have any specific information of what the setup was at Colleton County, but
And also, whoever she gave it to, does she think that they're going to, maybe they'll say, I'm not revealing my source, but you got to think that, we've all known people who lie, and they will dig in on that lie, even if you give them evidence to the contrary. And she also might have been just hoping that they wouldn't dig. She's friendly with, doesn't mean that they're not going to investigate her, but she's friendly with SLED officers because they're in and out of the courthouse all the time. She's friendly with the prosecution. So maybe she thought, well, they're just not going to dig. It doesn't really matter.
She was so well regarded at this time. I think Alan Wilson, the state attorney general, called her Becky Boo. She was heralded for her management of this trial, with the amount of media that was there, as well as just people who wanted to come and attend the trial from the general public. Mm-hmm. It was a lot. There were people camping out. And so
there's a bomb threat at one point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts that she did have to deal with that she's not used to in little tiny Waldoboro.
But what I found interesting was some of her emails were released by a FOIA request. And in those emails, she's having communications with some of the media. And one of them, and I can't even remember exactly which news organization this was. It was definitely not ours. She says, "Hey, can you send me my that Dropbox I sent you with the information?"
Right.
Now, maybe she was giving them
other things.
Legitimate exhibits that were allowed to be released to the public, but yeah, and there was another where like, "Hey, I wasn't supposed to share that with you. Can you
pretend it never happened?"
Pretend it never happened.
Yeah, and her emails, of course, are public because of the fact that she's a public official.
Yes.
Now, she did remember there were some phone issues with getting rid of phones and these sort of things, which we don't need to get into in a moment. So,
yeah, no, there was. She had a government phone. All of a sudden, the phones that she did have at the time
ended up in a dumpster or something.
Yeah, they're not accounted for. Now, Hill was released on a $50,000 personal recognizant bond.
So she could work.
Right.
She works out of state.
Yes.
Which we're aware.
Yeah,
why.
that was really interesting. In I can't remember if it was the Richland or the Colleton hearing. I don't know which hearing, because I watched both, but they're kind of jumbled in my head at the moment. But yeah, it said she was given permission to leave the state for work, so she's, I guess, working out of South Carolina. I thought that was really weird.
You would think Georgia or North Carolina, just based on the accessible, like a quick jaunt over. But I don't know. Could be anywhere. We don't know. Could be flying somewhere.
No, I went back and listened to what she told former Chief Justice Toal in regards to releasing this information to the media. And I thought it was really interesting. So I think we should let our listeners hear this clip.
Here it is.
One of the big responsibilities of the clerk of court is to take control of the exhibits that are presented in court. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And there were sealed exhibits presented in this case that were photographs of the two decedents at Moselle when the law enforcement authorities first investigated the murders. You recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And those photographs were sealed by the judge, were they not?
Correct.
And when the testimony about them was completed, they were under your control as the clerk of court, were they not?
That's correct.
How was it that those photographs came into public view?
Are you talking about after the...
I'm talking about the fact he alluded to it on sentencing and said that he was frustrated about it and was going to try to look into it. Those photographs that were sealed court exhibits under your control found their way into the public media, did they not?
I believe they did. And I think what happened, it was someone from the gallery took a picture from a screen that had some of the pictures on it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Did you ever allow anyone from the press to view these sealed exhibits?
No, ma'am.
Did you allow Netflix to ever examine the exhibits for trial?
No, ma'am.
How did you handle exhibits? Because you did have the press have great access to the exhibits, and you say several times in your book that you had to stay after to be sure that you interacted with the press about these exhibits. That's true, is it not?
That is true. We had Mr. J. Bender, and then we had the pool photographers and someone from maybe the state, I believe, or the Post and Courier, along with the court reporters, someone from court administration, and then someone from the clerk's office every night that would go over the exhibits to make sure everything was correct and within our domain.
Were any press people ever allowed to view the exhibits, even the sealed exhibits that you had on file?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
What was the methodology for allowing them to examine the exhibits? How'd you handle that?
I wasn't there a whole lot when we did this every night, but it's my understanding that the people that were involved with the exhibits, and especially the court reporters, and there was a certain time frame that they were allowed to take their pictures, and everything was all of the pictures were looked at by the court reporters that were there and the lady from court administration, along with someone from my office and Mr. J. Bender, to make sure that everything was done correctly.
What I'm asking is how you handled having them, the press, view these exhibits.
If I remember correctly, the press, we had certain designated photographers and then someone, I think, from the state or the Post and Courier, and they were responsible for putting it out on a stream for the rest of the media to
And would
access.
they do that by photographing the exhibits as they were in your possession after court was over that day?
That is correct.
All right. And how did you handle the sealed exhibits in terms of their availability when these press people are there photographing the exhibits?
They stayed sealed.
And so you think that you're aware of the fact that some of these on-the-scene photographs of the two decedents found their way into the public press. You're aware of that, are you not?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Yes.
And you contend that they photographed them in the courtroom?
That is what I heard.
I think if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, you're able to see Justice Toal's face. Unless I'm just reading too much into it, she appeared to be not buying Becky's story and seemed to be a bit perturbed.
Agree. And she also asked lots of questions, kind of the same question multiple times, giving her the opportunity to tell the truth.
As if Justice Toal knew some things. Like she specifically said, did you do it to Netflix? I mean, there was a ton of media there, but she mentions Netflix. And then she says other media, I think something like that. And Becky talks about, there's all these court recorders you had access to, basically is what she said.
And she said, wait, she believes that those photos, the photos of Maggie and Paul's bodies, where someone took a photo from the gallery, is what she says.
That's what and she says, yes. She goes, well, that's what I was told. But you really couldn't, the gallery couldn't see those. You could, maybe if you were right behind
Maybe
Alex,
both of these things happened. It's possible that maybe that did happen. Maybe someone took a picture.
I don't know. They were They were pretty careful of making sure people didn't see it, but you don't know, right? It's still proven guilty, that sort of thing.
Okay, well, there is lots of talk whether these charges against Becky Hill are going to result in Alex Murdaugh getting a new trial. And we have a statement from his attorneys, Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffith.
And here we go. We are aware of the charges filed against Becky Hill, and while these developments are serious, they are not surprising. We have long raised our concerns about her conduct during and after the trial, and this arrest further underscores the need to protect the integrity of the judicial process. Every defendant is entitled to a fair and impartial trial, and we look forward to Alex Murdaugh finally getting that fair treatment.
Now, we should note that Hill was not charged with jury tampering. I mean, obviously her credibility is shot between these new charges. We also have this ethics stuff that's going on, as well as her admittedly plagiarizing her book.
Parts of her book, yeah.
Yeah. However, Toal said that during this evidentiary hearing, she didn't find Hill credible when she made her ruling. She based her ruling on what the jurors said, and she did not believe the tampering that occurred was to the level that affected the outcome of what the jurors' verdict.
Yeah, yes. So she had kind of steered the decision very, very importantly, perhaps, that it doesn't matter what Becky Hill says. That's basically what she said.
She basically said, I'm going to listen to all these jurors. Now, there was that one juror who...
Yep. It was a little ambiguous.
Yeah.
Kind of tricky the way the questions were phrased, I think.
I thought so too. And then after she testified, she tried to submit an affidavit.
Mm-hmm.
Her attorney is also Joe McCullough.
And he had left because he couldn't stay there long because he was just coming off a heart attack. He had left, missed the questions, but had written something during lunch, I believe, to Justice Toal and said, she would like to come back up and clarify.
Or submit or I thought it was an affidavit, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But Toal said, nope, I've already talked to her. This is my decision. And I think honestly, she seemed a little bit confused. But that was just
The juror.
the juror seemed a bit confused about the questions
I
that
did
she
too.
was
I was
being
confused
asked.
about the question.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
But that's not surprising. So, anyway, she definitely took Hill out of the equation.
She did.
But let's listen to the rationale of what Toal says when she renders her decision.
The facts. Did Clerk of Court Hill make comments to any juror which expressed her opinion of what the verdict would be? Ms. Hill denies A, and so the question becomes, was her denial credible? I find that the Clerk of Court is not completely credible as a witness. Ms. Hill was attracted by the siren call of celebrity. She wanted to write a book about the trial and expressed that as early as November 2022, long before the trial began. She denies that this is so, but I find that she stated to the Clerk of Court, Rhonda McElveen, and others, her desire for a guilty verdict because it would sell books. She made comments about Murdaugh's demeanor as he testified, and she made some of those comments before he testified to at least one and maybe more jurors. Did Clerk of Court Hill's comments have any impact on the verdict of the jury? I find that the answer to this question is no.
Okay, one thing I think we should point out is that it really didn't take long after the hearing for Toal to render her decision.
Yes.
It was very quick.
And it was a pretty long, lengthy written ruling, and it didn't take long for her to put that together.
So maybe she already kind of had in her mind that this is the way she was leaning.
Or maybe it was outlined, and then, or maybe she's just good at writing things.
Or maybe she had two, and she was like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to kind of outline both decisions and go with that.
Yes, but the ruling was made, and the social media talk was about, the big one was that there was no tampering charges.
Right, and what a lot of people are saying, was this more about preserving the guilty verdict of Alex Murdaugh
By doing perjury and such, like with Becky Hill.
Right, instead of the tampering charges. But, I don't know that that's the case. We don't have the information about SLED's investigation. Also, were the comments that she made, yes, inappropriate, maybe fireable offenses as a clerk of court who should have known better if she made those comments. But does that really rise to the level of criminality?
And not only criminality does it rise to the level of getting the case tossed or jury tampering. And we have talked about how it seems like, without knowing, because SLED is not talking and Wilson's not talking, the investigation seemed to move very, very slowly. But how do we know that like Joe's jurors weren't interviewed till what, like a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Right. At least that's what he said, and
that's what they said. The jurors said, yeah.
Right. So I don't know why it moves so slowly. I mean, there could be multiple reasons. Again, I'm not really aware of how long investigations like this take. Maybe that's normal. Also wonder if there's not a huge rush because Alex Murdaugh is not going anywhere. He's serving all this time for his financial crimes. Okay,
there's not a rush for that, but the case before the Supreme Court of Ella getting a new trial has been put off multiple times, and this latest delay was from the state side. They wanted 6 more months, and it seems like the investigation started taking pace there. But you knew when that was coming.
Yeah, I think the filings I think it was 90 days. And I think the filings are maybe due late August or September, but which is a year after this whole process started. So there were some complaints by the defense that, hey, this is taking a long time. Again, he's not going anywhere, but I guess if you feel that you did not commit this crime, obviously it's one thing to be guilty of all these horrendous financial crimes, but killing your wife and son is another, matter.
The odds of him getting out of jail are very, very slim, even without the murder convictions. However, you're right. If you think you were unjustly convicted of murdering your wife and son, you'd rather not have that on your life resume.
Right.
I asked Joe about if some of the things that were, the SLED said they wouldn't release until the Becky Hill investigation was over, would be released, and he said no. So maybe there's still more Becky Hill, but investigation to come. We don't know. It's just, no one's talking from SLED. We don't know it's over.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's true. Now, okay, let's talk a little bit about the standard that Toal says she's using. She's using the Green standard, which is a South Carolina state case.
And when you say Green, that's the name of the case.
The case, right. We're just referring to it as Green. And my understanding with this case is that the jurors would have to been impacted by the potential tampering. Whatever was said would have had to change what the outcome would have been, whether they would have changed their verdict in some way.
And when we're told talk to those jurors, they're like, it didn't change. Whatever Becky said, they said did not affect our ruling.
Right. And the defense said that they thought that Rimmer was the correct standard. This is a federal case. So if that they're arguing about whether Green or Rimmer, they're still arguing about which is the right standard to use. So if they appeal and a higher court says, nope, we don't think it should have been Green, we think it should have been Rimmer. And in Rimmer, my understanding of Rimmer is that just the communications alone would have been enough for him to get a new trial. So I think at that point, Hill's lack of credibility really does come into play because she says, I never made these statements. And so, but can we believe what she says if she does get convicted of all of these other things?
And people that we have talked to and you've talked to said that as long as they go with the South Carolina Supreme Court ruling of Green, this whole Becky Hill stuff doesn't matter, has no effect.
Right. It matters what the jurors, if it would have changed. But I think there is a slight difference, and I think this is where they're really arguing, is that the contact with the jurors in the Green case didn't go to the merits of the case. And I think what the defense is saying is we think that the contact that Hill had with the jurors does speak to the merits of the case. Remember, she said things like watch his body language and maybe implied that you can't trust what he says.
Right. And we really can't believe just because someone perjures himself doesn't mean they lied about everything, but you certainly can't 100% believe everything else she said. Right? Yeah,
it definitely hits credibility. Now, we also have a statement from Myra Crosby's attorney, Joe McCullough.
She was the egg juror dismissed the day the verdict was reached. Joe McCullough says, as counsel for two jurors in the Murdaugh murder trial, today's indictment is yet another disturbing turn in a case defined by misconduct. The perjury charge against the former Colleton County clerk of court stems from her false denial during a jury tampering hearing that she allowed improper access to trial exhibits. SLED's investigation now shows that denial was untrue. She also denied having improper contact with jurors, despite sworn affidavits and testimony from two jurors, including my client, Ms. Crosby, confirming that she did. Ms. Crosby, removed on the first day of deliberations, believes she was deliberately targeted to deny Mr. Murdaugh a fair trial. The case demands accountability. The public deserves answers. I do want to clear that. I did say she was removed the day of the verdict. It was the day. Well, it was the same day.
Yeah.
That's right, because when they did it all in one day. When they went to the
it seems like such a blur, but I guess you've already answered the question, because my first question was, okay, so if the investigation into Hill is over, should we not be able to receive the information about the investigation? Should that now become public?
Like, for instance, what Myra Crosby's tenants did or did not say to SLED, which
ultimately resulted in her dismissal.
And so was her dismissal unfair or unjust?
Was it orchestrated in some way?
Even though, by the way, just for the record, Myra does not say Alec is guilty or not guilty. She's saying...
She's never gone on record saying
She just said that she doesn't believe it was a fair trial.
Right. And
the rumor was that she was unsure. And that might be... their conspiracy comes into play.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, we don't know. I don't know whether SLED is still investigating this, whether they interviewed people and they didn't find them credible in some way, or whether I don't know what.
How dig they? That is the.
Well, you know what I want to see
Yeah.
is the dash cam videos. That's what I want to see. The dash cam videos of Myra's tenants who she was allegedly having communications about the trial when she was not supposed to be doing that.
And they did sign an affidavit, but they maintained they were just tired and didn't know that they were signing.
And you should probably look.
Yeah.
I think any attorney would advise you, if you're going to sign an affidavit, maybe you should read it before you sign it.
Yes. I am all for, regardless if it's Alex Murdaugh or some, buddy without money that has been convicted, that the state and the agencies should be transparent. If they feel everything was done correctly, they believe they have a just verdict, then as much information as possible should be released, because that's the way the system's supposed to work. And let's take Alex Murdaugh out of that. Imagine it was, your mom or somebody that was convicted, and because when you're hiding things, it always seems like you're guilty of something.
Another thing I want to see in regards to this investigation is who all did they talk to? Because I've had this question all along, is the bailiff is the person who has the most contact with the jurors.
And was there all the time.
I think his name was Bill. Did they ever interview Bill? Why have we not heard from Bill? Because he seems like he could really clear a lot of this situation up.
Or not, but he should have some opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, there was also that whole weird thing about the juror riding in the car with Becky Hill and the bailiff. I mean,
Yes.
there's so many questions.
So many
that I
questions.
have that I think that, to me, this falls under the public's right to know.
100%. And again, we'll get the, you guys love Alex Murdaugh stuff, but no, we just like the transparency in government, as we all should love. And that is what really rooting for here, because even if the stuff comes out, it doesn't mean he's getting another trial. But at least we will know what was done, because you would want this on every single person who's convicted of major things, especially, to know every single thing that was done. How many through the, again, not talk about Alec here, but through the years have people been unjustly convicted due to something. So transparency is the way to go.
And you want people who have done bad things, of course, to pay the consequences for the bad things that they've done.
Yeah, but I just want to be. I think people should be consistent in their message. No matter how much you hate whoever's being charged, do you want transparency or do you not want transparency? That's what it should be a consistent answer you have when asked that question. So there you go. And we would love your opinion. We do have an opinion or a.
Yeah, no, I'm going to let you read it. We do have a comment on our Facebook page, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Okie dokie. By the way, it's Impact of Influence on Facebook. It's from Jimmy. It says, I find this story about her wanting a conviction to make money laughable. You know what makes more money than a conviction? Another trial. Actually, 6 trials of that fool would make everybody millions. And I have to hear Attorney Joe talk about his clients and their truth wanting to be heard. How about he post all 3 of their sworn signed affidavits of differing degrees of truth? I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
We have seen some of them, right? He has released them. The guy lied about his whereabouts. Is he talking about
I think
Murdaugh?
he's talking about Murdaugh.
Okay. Alex Murdaugh lied about his whereabouts, and then this guy called the law after supposedly finding his wife and son dead and was clean as a whistle. Then tried to say he couldn't lift his son up. The sadistic ginger could have thrown his kid 10 yards with adrenaline if he had actually found them dead. Please let this guy have another trial. I want to watch him and Dickie try to get him off so he can be hunted by those folks he robbed. The folks he robbed, no one is even forgiving him for that such nonsense. And I don't know about the idea that people are making millions and millions of dollars off of another trial. I mean, Harpootlian and Griffin are, I doubt, going to get rich off of a second trial because Alex Murdaugh.
I think they're talking more about media, people who, like us, are reporting on it. But I don't know.
I hope we're making millions.
Oh, yeah, we want to make millions. We're grifters that way. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
really, yeah.
I mean, I don't know who actually is going to want to sit through another whole trial and hear a lot of the same evidence. I mean, I am interested in the legalities of how, if he does get a new trial, how that will play out with the defense and prosecution strategies going into the trial, because they may say, we did this right, we didn't do this right, and change up how they present the information.
Oh, sure. As lay people, we have, had ideas about what they could have done differently. And so they probably do too.
Yeah.
And so we shall see eventually by the end of the summer, probably, the South Carolina Supreme Court will take it up.
No, we have until, I think, end of the summer, or I think it's actually September, for the state to file their
Right. The
brief,
states
and then I think after that, there's probably some time for a response. I don't quote me on this, 'cause I'm not a lawyer, but I think maybe the end of the year, when we'll hear arguments in front of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it seems like a long way away, but I feel like
This year's flying by. I think it seems like it's going to be here before we know it.
I can never even remember in my head when the Murdaugh trial was, like what year. It throws me off every time. I have to stop and do the math and think.
I know, because we're coming up on
2022, right?
Yeah, we're coming up on
3
our
years?
3-year anniversary.
Wow, that is, and we thank you guys for that. We couldn't have been doing it this long as you guys weren't hanging in there and listening to us and commenting, and now the YouTube channels and Evergreen Podcast Company. Thank you for that. I think that is what we have on this episode.
That's it.
All right, so there's some things coming up. I want to let you know that we'll be dealing still with the stand your ground law. There's some episodes coming up about that from experts. And if you have thoughts, ideas on what we should do differently, cases we should cover in the Southeast, reach out to us through the YouTube channel or the Impact of Influence Facebook page. As always, we're grateful. Talk soon, friend.